Joined by Mr. Weezar.
Nope, just you.
And also expecting Mr. Parks. Want to thank you. I have public comment. Let's take public comment right now. I run a 1-minute public comment, and if you need a little more, let me know. Jose Rodriguez and Mary Singas, is that right? All right, come on up and sit down. You got 1 minute. If you need a little more, you got to take it. Come on up, Mary. Go ahead, sir.
One or two?
1 minute.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. On this board meeting, my name is Jose Rodriguez. I'm an LAX employee, Asian from an airline, and I'm here because I'm requesting really bad the Commuter Express 438. I've been requesting that for almost 4 years to have the bus run all day long, from 5 a.m. to at least 9 p.m. It's really needed for employees, even for travelers. It's the only bus that is express from downtown LA to the airport area, which is aviation, the Green Line station. We really urgent need that transportation for employees. I really need it myself, and I'm pretty sure other employees and passengers really need the line 438. So please look into that, and hopefully we can have that line operating Monday to Sunday, every day of the year, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. at least. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Great. Would you see Lisa Schechter right there from my office to give you your information on the 438? Thank you. Mary.
Hi, I'm wondering if I may have 2 minutes?
You start with one, and if you go into two, no problem.
Thank you. So
Restart
sorry.
the clock.
I already lost my first page. Excuse me.
It's all right. What's the issue, Mary?
My one page, I only have 2 pages. Thank you for your
Yes,
patience.
Mary.
I apologize.
No problem.
I am Mary Singas, and I live in Mar Vista, which is in Council Member Rosenthal's district.
Right?
I'm representing the Dump Veolia campaign. We were with you on May 23rd speaking about the practices of Veolia, an international French company doing business in Israel, as well as currently applying for renewal of their contract with the City of Los Angeles for certain dash lines. We're presenting all the members with a package which include our letter to you, basically summarizing our research. Secondly, the map of the bus light rail routes in Israel that clearly show that the light rails are only for those who live in the settlements, not for the population as a whole. And the next 2 reports are from our own State Department, namely the U.S. Department of State policy statement regarding our country's commitment to human rights, and the U.S. Department of State report on human rights violations in occupied Palestinian territories for 2011. Some of this is new information or information that can be seen in a visual way. We are also aware that you have been hearing from our community leaders who represent your constituents also. And lastly, why am I working for this action? As you know, I visited the occupied territories with an interfaith Peace Builders delegation, and I've seen the level of degradation that meets Palestinians each moment, so much so that it can be said that each breath is actually an act of resistance to the occupation. If we were born Palestinian, we would need the world to be resisting this treatment against our human rights, as reported by our own State Department documents. Veolia is complicit in these human rights. Please don't reward them by renewing their dash contract. So we stand before you, encourage you to join the cities around the world that have ended their relationships with Veolia and follow the City of Los Angeles human rights precedents. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate that. And you've let Mr. Rosendahl know.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Rosendahl take the lead on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I have no other cards for public comment? All right, so first item of business, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 1 on the regular agenda is a Koretz-Biscayne resolution instructing DOT to amend the preferential parking district number 6 in Comstock Hills, INCD 5.
Great, is anyone here to speak to that? from the department? Thank you. Thank you for your good work.
Absolutely, council member. Well, just very briefly, preferential parking district number 6 was one of the earlier PPDs created in the city in 1982. In 1989, it was amended to allow for no parking anytime option for certain roadways on the street. This year, the council office received requests from the residents. They wanted to have the same option. We investigated, we did field checks, and determined that there was no difference between those streets that have the option and those that do not. Therefore, we agreed that we can go ahead and provide that option to all residents that live within that district.
So you recommend approval?
Certainly.
Good. Any questions? Mr. Parks, thank you for joining us. Mr. Weezer moves, second by Mr. Parks, so ordered.
Thank you.
Next item number 2. I do have one card on item number 2. Dan Hoffman.
Item number 2 is the Board of Transportation Commissioners report relative to a rate adjustment for private ambulance service in the city of LA.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to address this briefly. And I'm here on behalf of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. I'm the executive director, here to support the removal of 105 meters.
Special.
No.
Special 2? Thank you. You're special, Mr. Hoffman, because you're from Wilmington. So I'm going to ask you to be so special, go back to your seat. I'm asking to do that. Strike it for the record.
Yeah. Stricken from the record. Thank you.
All right. Item number 2, report from the Board of Transportation. Maria.
Yeah,
Call
it's-
number 2.
Yeah, it's the Board of Transportation Commissioners report relative to the rate adjustment for private ambulance services. DOT is here to respond if you have any questions.
Department staff here?
Good afternoon, council members. Farhad Zaltash from Department of Transportation. DOT has been directed since 1999 to provide annual study reports on rate study for ambulance service in the city. It's a routine matter. We've done it this year, and the board approved our recommendation. And this study was based on the blend of methods. So basically, that's the report. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy.
County of Los Angeles reviewed this at all as well?
No, they have their own rates. We make sure that our rates for the ambulance service is capped at their rates if they go higher.
Got it. Very good. Any questions on this? Mr. Weezer, Mr. Parks? Mr. Parks moves. Weezer second, so ordered. Next item.
Next item is the Board of Transportation Commissioners report relative to the 2011-12 non-ambulatory passenger vehicle service rate adjustment in the city of LA.
This is pretty much the same thing except it's for non-ambulatory service. The original report was based on blend of methods. However, some of the rate categories decreased compared to last year, so the board created a subcommittee to work with the industry members, and then the department was directed to provide a CPI option as well as a blend of method option. They discussed it. They chose a CPI method because under the CPI methodology, the rates went up. So they recommended the CPI adjustment.
Very good. Any questions, staff, to add to it? No other staff? Mr. Parks?
I didn't quite understand if we're looking out generally for the interests of those, the ridership, why we would support an increase when we've done what appeared to be the more extensive evaluation that would reflected a decrease.
That's a very good question, Mr. Parks.
You want me to repeat it?
No, I understood your question, and the department was directed in 1999 to do CPI, the study based on a CPI factor from data from odd years, and the blend of methods for data from even years. The blend of method looks at 3 different components. CPI.
This is out of sequence?
No, it's not out of sequence, except that this year, the board basically said that they did not like some of the rates going down. So we mentioned to them that one side of the equation was the industry. The other side of the equation was members of the public who use this service, and there are some folks who are unemployed, they don't have insurance, and they have to pay out of pocket. But we went back and forth, and the board decided to approve the CPI factor, basically increasing the rates.
Okay, but
Had it been on the blend of methods only, some of the rates, not all of them, half of them would have decreased.
But is this the year for what, CPI?
This would have been for the blend of methods year.
So we're basically going contrary to our past practices.
In case of non-ambulatory, yes, at their directions.
What was, anybody here that could talk about what their rationale was?
They basically said that the industry is hurting, these rates are going down, and some of the companies are not able to stay in business, and by further reducing these rates, it's going to be very difficult for them. The discussion happened at the board, and then the board created a subcommittee of their members, asked us to meet with members of the industry in a subsequent meeting, and many members of the industry showed up and they complained about the blend of method. Well, basically what we said was, okay, this year the CPI factor has gone up. What are we going to do if the CPI factor goes down the next year? Yeah. So that's something that they need to be aware of. They suggested that we look at revamping the formula, because the formula was developed in 1999. But in order to do that, we need to hire a consultant, and the cost of this study is a high dollar amount, anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000. So basically, for this year, for the non-ambulatory, they instructed us to provide the CPI option as well, and they chose CPI.
Is the larger population that uses this service, are they under insurance, or what's the common payment?
We don't have the exact data for that, but we know for a fact that a lot of them have Medicare and Medicare, so and most of them, that's what the company gets compensated for if they don't have additional funds.
Okay. But do they pay a reduced rate under those plans?
They do not pay reduced rates, and the companies are not supposed to give them reduced rates either, unless they can show that there is hardship, and then they get $25 discount.
Let me just express what my concern is although I can understand the commission saying that the rates go down, the industry is hurting, but on the other hand, the folks that are riding are not only physically maybe in bad shape that needs this service, but they're doing no better than the companies. And at some point, if the rates go up, they'll have less ridership, which means their profits will continue to plummet. I know we've had that back and forth, the blended versus the CPI, but to make a decision to take us out of sync, to make it very graphic, we're raising the rates in a year that doesn't warrant it, at least by our past practices. This disturbs me that they looked at the industry as opposed to the folks that are using the service.
I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Parks, and the department was on the record expressing the same concern that you did, but nevertheless they chose to approve the CPI methodology.
Any questions, Mr. Weezer? So, Mr. Parks, with your feelings, you want to?
I'm just going to do a no.
No vote for Mr. Parks. Mr. Weezer? Yes. So 2-1. Okay. Next item, I do have a card on.
Item number 4.
Madam City Clerk, CLA Executive.
Yes, thank you. Reader of the agenda. Item number 4, Zion Rosendahl Labange motion instructing DOT to report on the feasibility of establishing a transportation management organization along the Ventura-Cahuenga specific plan corridor.
We have one card from Dennis Debisi? DiBiase. Sorry, Dennis.
No problem. Good afternoon. My name is Dennis DiBiase, and I'm the 3rd City Council District appointee for the Ventura-Cahuenga Boulevard Specific Plan Corridor Plan Review Board. I'm here today to ask that you support the motion before you related to the establishment of the Transportation Management Organization along the Specific Plan Corridor. Our board voted to recommend the expenditure for a TMO in August of 2010. There's a separate fund established in the specific plan paid for through development fees called the Project Impact Assessment Fees. Previous short-term improvements along the boulevard have been paid for out of this fund. 19 intersections have been improved, 2 city widening projects and a sidewalk project in Studio City are planned. There's a large balance of fees available for further improvements. Page 40 to 41 of the specific plan lists a TMO as an acceptable mitigation for traffic impacts related to development along the corridor. This type of program would encourage alternate forms of transportation, including public transit, carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, and walking. One of the main goals of the specific plan is to ensure that the equilibrium is maintained between the transportation infrastructure and land use development in the corridor. This program would contribute to the achievement of that goal, and as such, we request your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak to that? Jay Kim, expert transportation engineer.
Good afternoon, Council members. Jay Kim from DOT. Yes,
You know you're an expert when you're in a community meeting and they mention your name.
Well, thank you.
Last night in Silver Lake, they mentioned your name.
But yes,
With
the
praise, I want to let you know.
Thank you again. The request is an allowable expenditure under the Ventura Coahuila specific plan, and we are very much supportive of the request. We just need to work out what the work would entail, and so we would like to work with the Ventura Plan Review Board to go through, and so it'll take us a little bit of time to figure out what the program that we want to put together with the money that we have in the trust fund.
Any questions, Mr. Park? Louisa?
Just to be clear, where's the funding coming from?
It's a trust fund. It's from developer fees, actually, that we collect along the Ventura Coahuila corridor.
Oh, specific from that corridor?
Yes, it's very specific to that corridor.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
No objection, unanimous vote from that. Next item.
Next item is the DOT report relative to removing certain underutilized parking meters, changing certain parking regulations, and upgrading certain parking meters to San Pedro and Wilmington.
Special, because I'm going to combine the two.
Yeah, it should be taken with special item number 2.
We'll do that. Okay, next item.
Okay, the next item is item number 6, which is a controller report relative to the comprehensive plan review of LADOT. I understand that the controller's office and DOT general manager would request that we continue that to the August 8th meeting of the committee. They're not available today.
Okay, so that will be continued on, based on that. So that's very good. Will be continued. Thank you.
Next meeting?
Yeah.
Next meeting. Next item.
Okay, that would bring us to item number 1 on the special, which is a DOT report relative to the
Item
establishment.
number 1 on the special. We're looking for the council member of the 15th district.
No, this is a different item. This is a preferential parking district establishment, if we can do that one
Do that
first.
one? All right, let's take it up right now.
Yeah, that's establishing preferential parking district number 157 in Sherman Village in
We
CD5.
have, come on up.
Good afternoon again. Yadi Hashemi, Parking Permits Division, LADOT. This has been a project that's...
Excuse me, we have a rule. You got to take your hat off when you come inside. Thank you, sir, very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the only change I need to report on is that this district we first worked on for Council District 5 now
Right.
happens to be within your area.
Right.
Riverside Drive and Coldwater Canyon.
Yes.
The project has been in the works for 3 years now, but what gives this urgency is because a hospital was demolished on the north side of Riverside Drive and a project to build 260 apartment buildings.
You recommend approval, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And now, what's today's date?
21st.
And you said it's been going on for 3 years?
Yeah, well, because, we had to go for a public hearing.
Okay,
Nevertheless,
okay, I got it for 3 years.
Right.
And today's the 21st? 25th. So we've done it, the 4th district moved fast in the days there.
This is your opportunity to claim that.
Got it. We thank Mr. Koretz's staff on that, and Mr. Krikorian and everyone who worked on it. Thank you. We'll push ahead on it.
Absolutely.
No problem. No problem. Okay, now we need, Sergeant, could you please summons the councilman of the 15th district, because I don't believe we have anything else.
No, that's it, those two
So
items.
we're just going to take a, is he ready to come over? Yeah. Excuse me? No. We'll take a 5-minute recess real quick. Would you go get him? Thanks a lot. You can stand up and stretch. Okay? He'll be right back.
I was hoping for some good...
This issue, if you could just hang for a minute. 5-minute break there, and we're waiting for Mr. 15th District in just a second here. Do we have a report from the department? I asked Maria to read it in the record. We're back in session now.
Okay, we have two items that are related, so we'll hear those together. It's item number 5 on the regular agenda, which is the DOT report relative to removing the parking meters in CD5, or CD15, excuse me, and then special item number 2, which is the CAO report and fiscal analysis of the proposals to remove the meters. That was the request from the committee at the last meeting. I'd like to note that the clerk has received a neighborhood impact statement from the San Pedro Neighborhood Council in support of the items.
In support of these items here. And I just want to, Stephen Robbins, Dan Hoffman, and Betsy Cheek are going to do public comment after we call on the great councilman of the 15th District. We just called the roll. We had recess.
Thank you.
Came back from recess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You betcha.
Thanks for your patience. We just completed our Public Works Committee meeting, and thank you for recessing for my report here. And thank you for taking this matter up so quickly as well. Last time I was here, you requested additional information from the CAO's office, who has now issued a report recommending approval of this proposal to improve the parking situation both in San Pedro and in Wilmington. CAO found that the recommendations to both take out some meters and include the 15th District into a demand-based parking meter program. CAO clearly stated that it will have no impact to the general fund and minimal impact to the special parking and revenue fund. In fact, the net impact of removing these meters as compared to doing nothing and keeping the meters is $45,000 per year over a 7-year period. For less than $50,000 a year, which is less than 1/10 of 1%, let me repeat, 1/10 of 1% of the parking revenue fund, we are able to invest in improving the parking situation in downtown districts of both San Pedro and in Wilmington. People have other alternatives for shopping, and they would rather go to locations like shopping malls in Torrance and in Long Beach where the parking is free. And as you've heard staff say, the parking fund is healthy and doing great, and it's constantly expanding and growing. So 1/10, again, 1/10 of 1% will not be missed. We will get this money back and more with the economic activity that will bring back to the shopping districts in both San Pedro and in Wilmington areas. Now that the DOT has supported this proposal along with the CAO, colleagues, I respectfully request that this matter be forwarded to the City Council for consideration.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
and I appreciate your comment. If you want to sit up here next to Mr. Parks, you're welcome to, wherever you feel comfortable. We do have some public comment cards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Stephen Robbins, Dan Hoffman, and Betsy Cheek. Want to come up? 1-minute public comment. If you need a little more, we'll give it to you, but I think you do it in a minute. Dan, you go first. It's your second shot.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge, and thank you also for coming down for the unveiling of the USS Iowa. I think that was you I saw.
That was, you saw me.
My name is Dan Hoffman. I'm the executive director for the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. Of course, I'm asking you this afternoon to support this motion. In Wilmington, it means the removal of 105 meters that are minimally used right now, and additionally extending a 2-hour limit to all of our parking area. And that serves a dual purpose. One, it gives a customer enough time to get into a professional service without coming back out and having a ticket. 2, it keeps turnover so we don't get employees parking in the spaces. Also, to replace the old meters, which I think makes good sense. It's very customer friendly to give them an opportunity to pay multiple ways. And not all of us carry around a pocket full of quarters, at least I don't. And then additionally, it reduces the rates in our city by 50 cents per meter and improves the signage to our parking lots, which if you get into our city parking lot now, you run across it by accident. So please support this one.
Thank you, Dan. Stephen.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Robbins. I'm the executive director of the San Pedro Business Improvement District, and we are here to support the councilman's motion to modify the parking regulations and meters within the community of San Pedro. the present meters and enforcement and regulations don't meet the current economic needs, and they actually stifle business development in the area. And to use, I'll be very brief, and just to make an example, if you have a matinee performance at the Warner Grand Theater, such as the Nutcracker Ballet on a Saturday afternoon, 1 hour and 55 minutes into the performance, you get a card person going across the stage, please feed your meter. And they take an intermission. So,
Very good. Betsy.
Hi, I'm the Betsy Cheek, the president and CEO of the San Pedro Chamber. Thanks, General. He does that a lot for me. San Pedro Chamber of Commerce, and I, of course, am here to support our councilman's motion. I represent 500 local businesses in the San Pedro, and the turnover of parking is essential for their customers so that new customers can come in and out, and so that we can improve the commerce in the city. At the end of the day, it's about commerce and money, and this is important. Changing the parking meter zones will be good for business in San Pedro and in Wilmington, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. We hope that if you...
Thank you very much. The department staff here?
Dan Mitchell with Department of Transportation, Senior Transportation Engineer. This is our report from last meeting was continued, but at that time I gave a presentation where I described the department's recommendation, which was briefly to remove underutilized meters in the periphery of the San Pedro and Wilmington parking meter zones and upgrade the meters in the core business districts, as well as some other minor changes. The other primary element is to implement a demand-based parking meter rate pilot program in those communities where we would use the utilization of those spaces as a guide for what the rate would be. That utilizes an existing provision in the LAMC, the municipal code, that would allow us to gauge the rate to help maximize the utilization between 70 and 90% on each block.
Good afternoon, council members. Janice Chang Yu, Office of the CAO. We put together a report as requested by the committee to analyze the fiscal impact of DOT's recommendation, and but the report basically says that even if you do nothing, there will be a financial impact to the meter revenue in the area because the meters are old. They are one of the few meters left in the city that had not been upgraded, and so the increase in maintenance costs will continue to deteriorate the revenue that comes into those parking meter zones in that area. And as our report states, the revenue impact that DOT's recommendation makes is very minor compared to the overall budget of the Special Parking Revenue Fund. And in general, the fund budget starting this year and as part of the Transportation Department's 5-year plan is to examine parking in areas such as this and to make new recommendations strategically to upgrade, update, modify, and improve the parking availability.
So you support the CAO? The report? Report the report.
The CAO report supports.
Good. Mr. Parks, any questions?
Yes,
you know, I appreciate all the things you've done here, and I think you got a very measured approach. The only thing I'd ask you to consider is that rather than ripping out the 100 and some odd meters, that you put a bag over them, that you take that in a timing sense to where you don't have to, if business picks up and 8 months or a year later we're not putting poles where we just took them down, that we find a way to preserve that. If you take the heads off and just leave the poles, you save a lot of time and effort. My understanding, if we do this, that you're not only going to increase the ability of people to park and the turnover, but business, if it comes back, you're going to have a need for that turnover down the road. So I would just ask that you look at that and space the removal of those meters in concert with your pilot and ensure that we're not basically going back and rebuilding it in a short time.
Councilmember, I'm prepared to commit that we will retain those poles in the areas that we're removing the meters, where our department is looking at converting those poles to bicycle racks for the community where that makes sense. And with the community support, we can retain those poles in areas where it makes sense, so that when the business comes back, we look at, whether it makes sense to add some of those meters, back to support the turnover.
And the other concern would be that we don't have the best of luck when we remove the poles, and next thing you know, we have a liability where somebody steps in either the bracket or the hole, and next thing you know, we have a liability where somebody tripped and fell. So the pole may be a saver of finances down the road also.
I know that we have had some instances. I think that in those instances, it's been shown that our department wasn't involved.
We're not putting blame.
Our contractor does an excellent job in filling those holes.
Okay.
What do you technically call that?
I'm sorry?
When you remove the head, the meter head, what do you technically call that? No, I just want to see, no.
That's it's the lollipop stick. I don't know. That would just be the meter post.
Cool Hand Luke. Anybody seen that movie?
Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke. That's what Paul Newman got in prison for. He cut the top of meter heads off. So
yes, we
that's
do not.
Cool Hand Luke there.
That's
Luke.
not the way we accomplish
That's
that,
it.
by the way.
Very good. That's good. But I think Mr. Parks makes a great point, and I know you're utilizing that from around. If I could have Dan back up here just for a second, if I could there, before we vote on this here. You're from Wilmington, right?
I am.
Okay, and did you grow up here? Sit down.
I grew up in the South Bay.
South Bay, okay, so where's the San Diego Freeway go?
The San Diego Freeway?
Yeah.
San Diego.
Okay, where's the Pasadena Freeway go?
Pasadena.
Okay, where's the Long Beach Freeway go?
To Long Beach.
Where's the Harbor Freeway go?
To Wilmington.
You got me, brother. I want to change the name to San Pedro. I think it should be go to Gaffey Street's in San Pedro. You're good. You're going to be hired by that. Think about that. It should have a name that gets with the Iowa there, because when people know San Pedro, it's right there. And I love Wilmington. Who was Wilmington named after?
Phineas Manning.
And where'd he come from?
Wilmington, Delaware.
Right. And what's the first capital to sign the Constitution of the United States?
Wilmington.
It is not on the agenda. Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you very much. I got it. I took a minute of your time, Mr. Park. We so ordered, so moved, voted on. Congratulations to your councilman. Give him a big hand there.
So we're approving both reports. We're approving DOT report and the CAO report.
All the way.
CAO recommends attachment A of the DOT report. That's what's approved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And also want to thank the students. Dan, if you could take your students to the Tom Bradley Tower, up to the top, look at the view, and you could see the St. Vincent Thomas Bridge from the top of the City Hall. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.